Hi, I'm Donna Vio from The Masquerade, and I'm going to show you how to make some pillows out of your extra quilt blocks. I've got big ones, smaller ones, some with piping, some without, some with zippers, and ones without zippers. So I'm going to show you how to do all of that in a fun project video. Now I could just sew a back on this and make it into a 12-inch pillow, but I think I wanted bigger than that. And so I'm taking some 2.5-inch strips and I'm going to border it. I'm just using white and I'm going to do a simple border. I'm not even going to miter the corners. I am just going to sew the border onto one edge, press it open, sew the next one, press it open, all the way around, and it'll be just like doing a block for a log cabin quilt. So that's an easy way to do it. And then I think before I put the back on, I want a little bit of pop around the edges of this. And so I think I'm going to put some piping on there. And to do piping, I don't know if you've ever done it before, it's not too difficult. You need a piping foot. A piping foot has grooves underneath it. It's got 2 grooves on the bottom of the foot. So they're the grooves in the bottom of the foot. They're not very big. And I'm not going to use cotton cording to put in my piping because it'll shrink. So I'm just going to use some acrylic yarn. And I bought some of that big fat acrylic yarn. And it's actually going to fit in that groove of the foot very nicely, and I'm going to cover it with my batik fabric that is kind of a mottled pink, because I'm also putting this in the table runner, and so it'll bring the color through. So the best way to do it is to cut 1.25-inch strips. You only need 2 of them, and I'm going to attach the strips together. I'm going to do it with a mitered seam, so the bottom strip is going this way, the top strip is coming towards me, and I'm going to sew diagonally from the top left to the bottom right, and then when that folds open there'll be a diagonal seam, just like when you're doing your binding. And then I'm not going to fold it and press it, I'm just going to wrap it around the yarn and I'll put it through the foot, and I'll show you how that works. So first I'm going to put this border on, and I'm putting them right sides together. I'm not using the selvage, so I'm letting it hang over the edge a little bit, using my 1/4-inch foot as a guide, and I'm just going to sew it onto one edge with a regular stitch line. And then I'm going to cut it to match the edge of the block. Those aren't the best scissors. I'm also going to cut this one. Now I'm going to press it open like this. And then I'm going to attach the next piece, right sides together, from the very edge to the end. And I'm going to press the seam toward the border, up that way. And again, I'm just going to cut that right along the edge of the pillow top. And it's going to get pressed toward the border. I'm actually going to hit it with an iron. I just want to do this quickly so you can see how I'm doing it. And then this piece, again, it's going to go right sides together. And it's going to start at the edge of the border. Now there's the end of the first strip, and that's going to be trimmed to the edge of the pillow. And this is why we need the second strip, just for that last side. This gets pressed away. And I'm actually going to take off that salvage edge first. And matching the corner. And this last one also gets cut. You can do this with a rotary cutter too. If you line up your edge of your ruler on the edge of your border, then you have some scrap border. And now this gets pressed. Remember those Bit of Honey candies? Bit of Honey. That's what this reminds me of. Mary Jane's. And you could do this pillow any color. It doesn't have to be sunshine. A little bit of sunshine. You could have a rainbow pillow, do all dark background and do very bright spikes, all different colors. You could have fun with this. This is an easy pattern and fun to do. So there it is with the border. And now it's going to be measuring 14 inches, I believe. Nope, it's measuring 16 inches. So 16 inches is a nice size for a pillow, for a couch, for a living room. And now I want to take this strip that I made for the piping, and I want to put the yarn in it. I'm going to make sure that my batik doesn't have any creases. And where I sewed it together in the middle, get rid of these creases. There it is. I've pressed the seam open so that it'll lay flat. So you want this to be folded with the wrong sides together. You want it right side out. So just remember where that seam is and which way it's got to go. And then your yarn, I always start it with the yarn hanging a little bit out. And then I fold my fabric over my yarn. And then I run it through the machine with that special piping foot on the machine. If you don't have a piping foot to use, you can use a zipper foot and make the zipper foot go right up along the edge of that yarn in there. But I want to show you the piping foot. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to put this in. I'm going to use the groove on the left. So I'm just going to put that down right on top of the yarn that's in there. The yarn is folded right in the middle here. And it's going to go right through that groove. And you can see I'm going to stitch right next to that yarn. I should be using a like thread, same color thread, and I'm not. But you'll be able to see it this way. And the feed dogs will do the work. They're going to pull it right through. You just keep feeding that yarn in there so that your fold is keeping your raw edges even and your yarn is right up against the fold. And it's good to have your needle in the needle down position so that as you're manipulating it and you're going along, you're not hopping around. And so I'm just slowly making my way along here. I cut enough yarn to go around the pillow the 4 sides of the pillow, plus a little bit, like an extra 6 inches. So I'm just going to keep going with my 2 strips that are put together until I get to the end of this yarn. Got enough of it already gone through here. I can show you what it looks like. So there's the piping. It's a nice rounded detail so that it'll stick out in the seam all the way around the edge of the pillow. So I've come to the end of the yarn here, and I don't want to sew past it. I want to be able to see it. So I'm just going to do some back tacking right there. And call it a day. And then I'll snip this off a little long. It'll give me some extra that I can reattach to the other end after I go around the pillow. Now I'm going to attach my piping to the edge of the pillow here, and I want to start in the center because of the side seam, because it'll be easier than trying to make it look good on a corner. So I'm going to just leave 3 or 4 fingers widths past the middle seam here. Here's the middle seam, and I've got a little bit extra going past the middle seam, and I'm going to start here and leave this loose for now. And again, I'm doing it with my piping foot still on my machine, and I'm matching up the raw edges here because they're at 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to just start with a little bit of a back tack, and I'm going to go around this pillow, and I'll show you how I do the corners. Now I want to stop 1/4 of an inch before I come to the end, and I'm going to eyeball it. But let me just look and see if this foot is 1/4 of an inch. It is. It's about 1/4 of an inch from the end of the foot to the needle is about 1/4 of an inch. So when the end of my foot is at the end of my border here, I'm going to turn the piping. So in order to turn the piping, I'm going to clip from this corner at a 45-degree angle up to the stitching. And now I'll stop at that mark where the top of that snip is. I'll turn my pillow, and I'm going to reset the piping under that side of the foot. And I'm going to just keep going right around the corner like that. And again, the same thing's going to happen to this corner. So I can actually look at it right now and find out where my corner is and do a diagonal snip up to the stitching so that it can turn, and I can go around that corner as well. So I make sure my needle's down right at the top of that snip. Lift up my foot, turn my pillow top, and make sure that my binding turns and flips up out of the way. And now that piping foot will fit right on top of the binding again. There we are, close to the corner. It needs a snip. Now you can draw yourself a 45-degree angle. You can see I'm just eyeballing it, and it seems to be working pretty good. Now we're getting close to the end, and we want this to look seamless here. And we can do it a couple of ways. We can pull out some of this stitching that was at the very beginning here and make the binding so that it's just like doing a binding on a quilt. However, if you want an easier way to do it, you can snip this past the end here, and we don't need the yarn to go sticking out. I want to snip this past the end. I'll come down quite a ways here. I'm going to pull out these stitches. So that I can then put this binding in here and give it, and then just finish off the seam. First, I'm going to have to take some of this yarn out of here so that it's the same, so that it butts up against the other end. I don't want it to overlap too much. And I'm going to have to take this and roll it in so we don't have any raw edges sticking out. I'm just going to finger crease that. And now, when I finish stitching this, I don't want to stretch it too much. This will hold it on there, and it'll keep it from fraying because the ends are folded in. If I wanted to do it like a binding on a quilt, I could remove a lot more stitching and attach that piping fabric to itself and then put the yarn back in it. It's a lot of work. We want a quick, fun project. And now, when I put the backing on this, oops, there's a thread I can cut. And now when I put the backing on this, the only thing that's going to stick out around the edges is that piping a little bit. So I have my backing fabric, I have my pillow form, and I have my front of my pillow. And I've put piping around the front of the pillow. And I could add a zipper right in here along the bottom if I wanted to, like I've done on this pillow, to get the pillow form in and out of it. But if you don't want to go through the trouble of a zipper, I'm going to show you a nice easy way to put the back on. So my backing is cut at 16 inches because my pillow is 16 inches. So you'll need to buy a width of fabric strip that is as wide as your pillow top. So my strip is 16 inches and it's a full strip, but that's because I'm going to use enough as if I was going to make two backs. I'm going to cut two 16-inch squares, fold them at 3/4, and then overlap them and attach them to the back all in one fell swoop. So here's my pillow form. I know that it's 16 inches. I'm just going to cut my strip to equal. It can actually be a little bit bigger. It doesn't really matter, but it has to be at least as big. So let's make sure. And I'm going to go past it by like a ½ inch. And now I'm going to make another one the same size. I'm making sure it's lined up nicely with the first one. Boy, is that a crazy pattern. I can see it here, but you probably can't tell on the camera where the edge is. That's the scrap from my with the fabric strip. So now I have two pieces that are the same size. And I want them to have a fold at the center. So this is a batik. You really can't tell the wrong side and the right side. But if it was not a batik, you want it wrong side up, and you want to fold it somewhere along the back there. And then you want the other one also wrong side up, and you want to fold it along the back. And they're going to overlap each other until they are the exact size and shape of the pillow. So this one can be folded a little bit more and moved in. It's kind of a guessing game here. There we go. Look at that. Pretty close. It's okay if it's a little bigger, but you definitely want it overlapped. And so right now, this is wrong side up and this is wrong side down. It needs to go right sides together. So here's my folded piece on top of my other folded piece. And I want to make sure that these stay connected just like that on both of the folded edges. So I'm going to pin them together there and stitch them to make them into one square so that they don't fall apart on me. I want them to stay this size and shape. So I'm just going to stitch where there's multiple layers here on both of these spots. So there's my piece, and I've only sewn it here and here at the bottom where it's overlapping, and I can see where it's still overlapping. I have it wrong side up here, and I can actually reach into that overlap spot. So we want this wrong side to be facing down. And now it's right side up, and there's a nice fold here. I can reach all the way in to where the pillow's going to be in order to get the pillow in and out. So now I'm going to put my pillow top on this, and they're right sides together. This way, see if it's any better. Not exactly square, I guess. So I've got it right sides together. I can see a little bit of extra fabric around the edges from the pillow back, but that's fine. And because this pillow has piping on it, I'm going to use a piping foot. If I hadn't have put the piping on it, I wouldn't have to use a special foot, and I could just sew all the way around all four sides. And it's best to start in the middle of a seam so that you can have a nice clean corner as you're going around the edge. And I'm going to pin it. And I'm not pinning it right on the seam, I'm just pinning it close to the edge. I don't want it to be meandering, but I don't want the pins in the way either. So I'm just going to get close to the edge with the pins and put 2 or 3 in on each side. Oh, let's say 3 or 4. And that'll hold them nice and steady. And you can see I'm putting them in so that they're pointing away and up from the right edge of the pillow, because it's going to, I don't want to stuff all this pillow under the throat of the machine. So I'm going to sew this side all the way around. And there's no zipper in it, and it's wide open in the middle with those folds, so we'll be able to turn it right side out, super simple, and stuff the pillow form in. There we go. I'll take that to my machine and sew all the way around. Now, I've used piping, so I want to make sure my piping is inside the pillow. I don't want it popping out here like this, or we won't ever see it. So I've got to make sure it's on the inside of the pillow. If you didn't use piping, you can use a regular foot and you don't have to worry about that. So my piping is going into the left side of my piping foot. And I'm starting from the middle. I'm going to back tack a little bit. And I'm going to go all the way around. So I'm going to just make sure this piping is out of the way and that it's towards the inside of the quilt. To the inside of the pillow top. And as I get to the corners, I've got it pushed to the inside. But then when I turn the corner, I got to make sure that the rest of it is pushed to the inside again. So I'm going to stop right on that corner, lift up, reach in here, and with my tweezers I'm going to jam everything into the center so that it's a nice flat corner there underneath. And I'm going to do that around every one of these corners. The good news is I can see the stitching that added the piping to the pillow top. And so if I stay right on top of that stitching, or just to the left of it, you won't see any of that stitching when you're looking at the finished pillow. Got this great center line on my foot, and I'm lining it up just one thread over from the stitching, so it's just to the left of the stitching. And that's a nice squishy soft big piece of yarn in there, so it's not like it's going to get jammed on my foot or break a needle or anything. When you use that nylon or that heavy cotton cording, it's so thick, and if you stitch over it, it's quick and easy to break a needle. I love to use yarn as piping. And I want to make sure all of that is pushed. I don't want to catch those corners in my seam. I want to make sure they're pushed to the inside of the pillow so we have a nice clean corner when we're done. And we are back at the beginning. Okay, let's see what it looks like. So there it is. You can see that you can look right in there, and you can see your pillow top in there. And so I'm going to reach in and grab these corners. I'm going to pop them through. When they're all out here like this, we'll be able to pop the pillow form right into that. No stitching seen on the back. It's just a nice fold and a finished pillow top. So now we're going to reach in here. I'm going to shove this pillow form in there, and I like to work with the corners first. So I'm going to get one corner up there as much as I can, and then the other corner. And then I'm going to have to pull this folded flap up over it. Get the other two corners in. As long as I get the corner all the way to the corner, I'll be able to move around the stuffing and fix these folds here. So one fold's just naturally on top of the other. There you go. No zippers. That's an easy pillow back. So there's some piping and no zippers. You don't have to put the piping in. You can save yourself that bit of time and just do a pillow top and a pillow back with folds. That's what I did on this one. No piping. but I did put the zipper in somewhere. Here it is. And it's hid behind that little flap. So you get some extra quilt blocks when you're making a quilt, put them to use. Make some great pillows.